Okay, I think it's 12:20.
Okay, so before we get started, just real quick, are there any general HDF5 questions or anything to address? You can feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat.
Gerd, I just had one question. This was regarding a comment that you had put, and it was just I guess maybe a relatively minor thing. You had said, had anyone ever thought about naming HSDS HDF5 Scalable Data Service? I didn't see any follow up on that, but so I thought I might bring it up now. We can, you can respond to me on the forum or do it here, whichever works best.
Oh, I think it should be called that, meaning the HDF5 Scalable Data Service, because, well, it's scalable or not scalable. Sort of the highly attribute doesn't really add anything or makes it more confusing. And so, yeah, I think, I had a bit of a chat with John, and he agrees. So at some point, we'll probably start calling it the HDF5 Scalable Data Service. And
oh, fantastic. Okay, that was. I wholeheartedly concur. I think it makes a nice, strong association with the native form of HDF5, and I do think the point is well taken that a little bit generic and redundant. So
yeah.
Okay, so I just thought, well, that's really good news. I think it solidifies the brand.
Yeah,
I would even suggest dropping scalable. I mean, that's not adding a lot, and just go with HDF5 data service.
Yeah, yeah.
5DS.
And I also think it's important, as Robert said, the association with HDF5 is important. Otherwise, people often have the impression that, oh, it's this other thing, and it's not really HDF5, and
Yeah.
that's not true. It's the same data model and very similar feature set. I mean, the H5Pi compatibility alone speaks for itself. And yeah.
Yeah, H5DS would be really good, I think.
Okay, well, I think it sounds like it's at least a minor victory at this point. And we'll see if Quincy can make headway on the other part. Okay, thanks, Gerd. I have to tell you, just from sort of this marketing 101 feeling that I have, I go, oh, that's a big win. So that's good. Okay.
Glad to hear that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about our upcoming HDF5 User Group meeting, and then I'll hand it back over to Gerd. This event will be May 26th through 28th at DESI in Hamburg, Germany. Obviously, it's probably too late for most people to plan travel there, but we do have a great online option. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the event and then some sessions you really won't want to miss. So we started this in 2019, so this is our 6th year, although it's 5 years of calling it a HUG event. It was kind of rough because after our first year, we were in the pandemic, and I thought the events we had completely online were actually really fun, and I kind of bonded with people. You know, there were people that we met and talked to for the first time virtually, and it went really well. So now that we're in person again, we've been alternating kind of between large European facilities and Midwestern universities. What we look for is free or cheap facilities, accessible transportation, a local host to help us with making arrangements. It's been Surin, Anthony, Igor this year. We're always looking for help with sponsoring, which could help shape the location, provide us a free or cheap location, or be on the organizing committee. It's really, you know, if you want some more variance in where we hold them, we really need an active local host. We found there's a high level of interest with our base. So we do see, you know, a lot of the same friends every year. But if you're in any position to help us reach out to industry folks to get them to share, or, you know, if they're not able to share, we understand, but to be a part of the conversations and help shape the future of HDF5. So this year, it's 2.5 days, Monday through Wednesday. We're going from roughly 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Hamburg time. It's not a great time for people in the in the Americas. But we've planned the community sessions that I think we really want people to attend live if they can later in the day in Europe. So it'll be early morning for the Americas. So hopefully people from both, well, all continents will be able to make it to those sessions. So a few of the sessions you might be interested in, we have one on sharded storage, a Java implementation of HDF5, multi-threading, sparse data storage and encryption, BLOSC2, high performance storage for HPC, and many more. We'll probably release the timetable here in the next day or so. We are going to have this go by Zoom as well as in person. Again, there's no friendly schedule for everyone, but we are recording all sessions. They'll be on our YouTube channel within a few days. As I've mentioned, there are roundtable sessions that we really want everyone to try to attend. I'm sharing the times in the next couple of slides. They may go earlier by like one session, 25 minutes. So go by the timetable on the website, not what I say here, but I'm fairly confident these will be the times. We've also included the email there for the group if you have any questions or have trouble getting online. And the registration address is at the bottom of these slides too. So as usual with this event, we'll have the state of the HDF5 software ecosystem presented by Director of Engineering, Scott Breitenfeld. That'll be 3:20 in Hamburg, which will be about 8:20 Central Time for us here in the Midwest. So this will be kind of a look into where we're at, some recent advancements, key components, and ongoing challenges. Scott will talk about some future directions of tools and libraries, and he'll talk some about potential future initiatives, things we're working on, and things we hope to work on. It's a really good session to attend to kind of learn where we're at and where we're going. Then, so that's on Monday. That'll be end of the day Monday. Then kind of end of the day on Tuesday, we have an HDF5 viewer roundtable. And I think Gerd will talk more about what we're thinking on HDF View in this session. But this roundtable will have Gerd will talk about HDF View. John Reedy will be there in person to talk about HDF Compass. Thomas Vincent will talk about Silks. I've never actually heard that pronounced out loud, but that's another viewer. And then Axel will talk about H5 Web. They'll each present the history, features, intended use, and future roadmap. And then they'll have an open discussion of what future steps would best serve the needs of the community. So I think that'll be really interesting. And the more people we can hear from in that session, the better work we can do on this topic. And then truly ending each day will be a roundtable facilitated by Scott. These will be after the State of HDF5 talk on Monday, after the viewer roundtable. These will be completely open community discussions. You can bring questions and concerns. We'll have people with vast history with HDF5. So between the people online and in the room, I don't feel like there's a question they can't answer. So, you know, questions can be of any nature. And of course, it's recorded. So what can't be answered there or addressed there, we'll take it home and work on it. So again, how to attend. We would like everyone to register to be able to attend the Zoom event. There's a little confusion sometimes when you go to log in at that URL. If you don't have a DESI account, you have to click this Helmholtz ID account, and you can use your Google or GitHub ID. At that point, it's user-friendly. So are there any questions about the HUG event for me? Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Gerd. Do you want me to advance the slides for you?
Yes, please. Yes, so this is, yeah, Lori mentioned that roundtable, and I was tasked with saying something about HDF View and what we are thinking. And what I would like to do, of course, there isn't very much time left, but a few weeks nevertheless. I would like to create a survey, and I'll post the link on the forum, asking people yeah, where we stand with HDF View, and you could say, well, the issues are well known and so forth, sure, but okay, I would like to sort of take a fresh look at this. And yeah, what we would like to get out of this is really usage patterns, pain points, feature needs, but then also contributor barriers. And I mean, yeah, I have plenty of ideas why that is, but then it's good to have ideas, but it's even better to have a few data points and actual evidence. And next slide, please. Okay, right. So the survey that we put together, and that might change slightly, has a few questions, about a dozen or a little over a dozen questions, asking about your background, meaning what is your role, what is your industry, how familiar are you with HDF5 in general, and how frequently do you use HDF View? And there must be tons of HDF users, HDF View users out there, let alone HDF5 users, because it's all-time unbroken loss leader in the sense that most of our downloads are HDF View downloads. So if you are a cynic, you would say, well, people must be really desperate that they are putting up with such a piece of software that is kind of in a not very good state. But then I wouldn't put it like that. We really want to move this forward. And right, so what's working, what's not? And again, we have some ideas and responses from surveys in the past when we had these EOS workshops, for example. And then feedback on if you want to get involved, how can you contribute, what prevents you from contributing today or picking up something. And then, yeah, looking ahead. And Lori, I think if you click on that link, you should have access to that. The link is not for public access yet, but, and maybe it's not that important. Does it work for you?
No, I get an access permission.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, no, well, I gave you the gist. So look for it on the forum and we'll have a separate announcement. But yeah, I would like to, I've spoken with Mike Folk, for example, about the full history behind HDF View, and I learned already quite a few new things. So I'll try to compile all the information that I think is relevant to this roundtable, and then yeah, have a good discussion. And what I can say already, I mean, John is organizing it. It's not about, oh, it's about deprecating this or that. Currently, I think HDF View has a great future if we can secure the right resources and community involvement to move it forward. But then it's sort of subtle things. Is it important to immediately or very soon switch from SWT, I believe is the current GUI framework that it uses? Should we switch to JavaFX? Well, I don't even know if we are in a position to make an informed decision about that. But then again, that's where I think the community has a role. I'm sure there's no shortage of talent and knowledge out there of people who could advise us on that, or sort of point out some of the nuances and what we or they would be getting themselves into. And anyway, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Any comments, thoughts? No? Okay, then I'll just move on. So stay tuned. The next is sort of the format for this HDF Clinic here. And I'm talking about the HDF Clinic, meaning this type of event format. And where I'm coming from is really that I believe this can be vastly improved where we are at the moment, I believe, is sort of an odd mixture between, call it office hours and high quality, sometimes content creation. We want both. I think we want both, but mixing it in this form for a variety of reasons is maybe not a good idea. And if you go to the next slide, Lori, we have some ideas. So, for example, what if, and everybody who is here should feel free to chime in. One idea we have is, well, let's maybe have a separate, really office hour type event, an hour every week, where we could actually staff it by a sustaining, we have something called the sustaining engineer of the week. So every week, one of our engineers is what we call the sustaining engineering, the sustaining engineer of the week, whose responsibilities include to watch the forum for questions that they are all answered, look at GitHub issues, triage them, and sort of tasks like that. And we could add to that portfolio, so to speak, to just be present in a Zoom meeting every week for an hour. And if people pop in and have questions, as in an ordinary office hour, they could pull in people as needed. So it doesn't mean that everybody who might be needed to answer a specific question has to be present at all time. But they can then, since we have, of course, we use Teams internally, and they could notify a person where they suspect that that person might just have the answer. And also, I think one of the shortcomings of the current arrangement is, okay, it's good to have some regularity, but only up to a point. So this particular time, 12:20 Central Time, every week might be inconvenient for a lot of people. And in particular for people who have questions, who would be more interested in an office hour type event, rather than sort of in another monologue from me or John or someone else. And so what we could do, for example, is to rotate throughout the month. So we have it at an earlier time, let's say on the first Tuesday, if it then ends up being Tuesday, have the event a little earlier on that first Tuesday, and then just keep advancing through the week, so through the month, so that people in Europe or elsewhere have a chance to attend these office hour, and even for sort of people in the US or in North America, yeah, people just have different styles and different habits, and we want to yeah, make sure we are accommodating as much as we can. And then finally, yeah, content is king. Content is king. I think you can look at how many views some of our YouTube videos get and so forth, and it's all over the place for a variety of reasons. Some topics are not as interesting at the moment, or as broad, as appealing to a broader audience. But then, yeah, quality is definitely an important factor. And that's true no matter what format it is, whether it's video, it's blog, it's a webinar, to find the right kind of speaker and so forth. So I think for me, at least at the moment, I like this idea of perhaps splitting this and getting, in the end, better outcomes on both sides, in terms of giving people a chance to ask any HDF related question at a time that works for them live, but then also the people who are looking forward to high quality content, but don't want to spend an hour or asking ChatGPT for transcripts of YouTube videos or something like that. They just want to scan a blog post quickly and make up their mind, do I really want to spend 20 minutes reading it and understanding it? And so just a thought, and of course your feedback is very important and welcome. Any thoughts on that? Quincy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, we have these office hour-y things, and I could be wrong, but the audience for this is already sparse, and I'm not certain that rotating it is going to help, because it just adds another level of unpredictability to, now when is this? And once a month it's in your time zone? Yeah, I don't know. It might be better to try to keep it regular but shorter, and maybe pick 20 minutes, because it's going to be sparse, right? Early in the day, Central Time, and sometime kind of later in the day, Central Time. And split it in half and keep it regular, though, so that there at least was some better overlap with marginal time zones that might have somebody who would want to reach in. And I still would kind of concentrate on Europe more. I don't necessarily think Asian community of users is likely to come in yet, maybe. But the regularity, I think, overall would be my thought.
Interesting ideas. Thank you. Yeah, we'll think about that. Any other?
I was thinking about the Ask ChatGPT for a transcript. I mean, why don't the HDF group already just pre-make the transcripts available?
No pressure.
No, I'm just saying, right? I mean, if somebody could do it, why not,
Sure. Yeah. But still then, from a time perspective, of course, reading or quickly scanning.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that, it will necessarily influence the user's decision a different way. I'm just saying. Sure. Yeah, those are the two things that popped up to me.
Great. Okay. Well, if there are no other comments.
Here,
Robert.
The longer form, content rich, that does sound like an investment of resources there, because those require some time to prepare and get everything squared away. How would you approach that?
Well, I think it is already in an investment, in the sense that I think it's really a differential. I don't think in terms of investment it would be a new level, because I think we kind of have good content, or we are always trying to, whether it's project activities or something, sort of look for, in double quotes, natural fallout in terms of content for events like this. So the person that then would present it is kind of, they are in the material. They don't have to spend time reading into this and becoming experts. They better are at that point. However, what they don't do at the moment consistently, myself included, is really take the time to, I mean, of course, if you are a professional YouTuber, for example, you would create a script or something like that. You would create a script, you would have maybe a team, but at least, well, we have, for example, Lori, who does a great job, given the time, for example, to experiment with the quality of the audio, for example, the lighting, and then sort of all the refinement. And I think that's what we are lacking at the moment, and that separates us from good content that may not, that in terms of its delivery, is not as good as it could be. And so I think it's maybe more of a differential there in terms of, would it require additional resources? Yes, but it would make, I think, the presentation and delivery more appealing and yeah, just be a better value.
Yes, well, I think there are some examples of YouTube content creators that do something similar. I've seen things by IBM, which of course has vast resources, but the format that they use and sort of these transparent whiteboards that are used as part of the lecture, and they're not particularly lengthy, but they just get to the heart of something. But it is, the technique is very good, but it probably still requires some production values.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the way they communicate a slice of technical information, it's very well done. So there are examples out there of perhaps people who have thought about the problem and have modeled it and have have hit on an effective solution. And then I guess the question is, how costly is it to replicate that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, and I completely agree with you. I mean, part of why perhaps some of our content is too long in terms of it could be presented better in shorter time, but that's really then where, yeah, the preparation and the routine and all the rest of it shows, is really that, yeah, you go into this very deliberate, you maybe have even rehearsed it, and whereas right now, well, yeah, we are in a situation where, yeah, all of that is not the case. And yeah, people know their stuff in terms of the material, but they have received no coaching in terms of their presentation skills, or there's no rehearsal, I can assure you that. And and you can see that for yourself. Yeah.
But it's also easy to see how, if you look at a number of the presentations that are sort of in this ballpark already, it's not a reach to take something like that and go to the next level with it in terms of shortening it up, editing it, and then getting the proper presenter approach to it. So it's close, but there are good examples out there of, and I think it's not an unreachable thing for this richer form of content that you're talking.
Great, thank you. Okay, then let's move on. We are almost done. So this is another thing. I wish we can find some time to talk about this at HUG, but it's also something that I'm interested in sort of doing on the side a little bit. It's sort of, I didn't go to business school, but I understand that in business development and so forth, the voice of the user or the voice of the customer, that's sort of a well-established thing. And Laurie, if you could advance the slide. The way I stumbled across this, I come to that on the next slide. But of course, why would we want something like that? Well, you want to do things like identifying the range of application domains and disciplines, understanding patterns and so forth. I don't have to read that out for you. And by the way, another thing that we have not mastered, we have a great school at our doorstep, but we have not managed to work with the right department and recruit students or people who might be interested in taking on projects like that for their own educational purposes, but also for our benefit. And I'll just throw that out there. But Laurie, if you want to advance to the next slide. The way I stumbled across this was actually through this paper. I have hyperlinked it at the bottom. It's not the newest paper, but then it's also not super old. And the title of the paper is the title of this slide, Identifying Customer Needs from User-Generated Content. And where these guys are coming from is basically to say, okay, you can pay an expensive consultant to tell you something about what's wrong with your product, versus in this day and age, you can take advantage of all kinds of AI capabilities that harvest the right kind of user-generated content. And in the business world, those could be Amazon reviews, although, as we know, this is an arms race. You can buy whatever, a dime a dozen Amazon reviews nowadays, or GitHub stars, or whatever you want. Everything is for sale. So you want to take that with a pinch of salt, but nevertheless, the question is mining user-generated content as the cheaper form for sure to gain insights about your product versus conducting face-to-face interviews, which I think you can't replace, but then can you really scale it? And the answer is probably in general no. But if you, for example, in our case, well, what would be relevant resources of user-generated content? And yeah, you can just go to Google Scholar, and just the other day you can compile, for example, how many publications that have the keyword HDF5 in there somewhere, whether it's in the title, the abstract, or the main content of the paper. You would see a figure like this. Now, you can then ask all kinds of questions. We all have our ideas, I'm sure, but I honestly don't know what the truth is. Of course, then that depends. When I say, for example, what are the top 10 fields using HDF5? Well, I would have to define what do I mean by a field, and then how do I measure, or how do I organize that ranking and so forth. But putting that to one side, you could then have interesting other follow-up question. For example, in their use, are these 10 top fields really the same, or are they different? And of course, you can argue and say, well, that again depends on how you define fields and so forth. But my hunch is that probably they would use things very differently. They would report different issues. For example, if they have issues with using HDF5, the kinds of issues they would report would be different. If you ask them for their top 3 wish list or something like that, they might look different and so forth. But then, of course, yeah, with the latest generation AI tools, you can already include certain types of research tasks, literature searches, and so forth. But then, yeah, without a ground truth, you need to build some trust first. These AI tools are not a good starting point. And yes, for example, as an organization or as a community, could we perhaps establish some kind of ground truth against which we would measure AI-generated assessments? Maybe, I don't know. But just, I made fun of it. In this paper, for example, this paper discusses this original question of expensive consultant versus AI-based capability on user-generated content. They use an example there about the quality issues around dental products. And then you could ask, well, what's the coverage in terms of if you create this, call it Venn diagram, where you have sort of the issues identified by AI capabilities, and then you have this region identified by human consultants, and you would hope that there is an overlap, and it turns out the overlap is actually pretty substantial. It's about, if I remember correctly, 80+%. So 80% of the issues identified both have actually in common. So AI can spot them for you, and consultants can spot them for you as well. However, there is sort of, call it the symmetric difference. There are issues only identified by AI, and there are issues only identified by human consultants. And interestingly enough, if I remember correctly, one of the issues identified by consultants that was not identified by AI capabilities was, for example, certain dental products are difficult to use for left-handed users. And I find that interesting. and if you think about it for a while and try to rationalize it, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't know how many web pages are out there dedicated to the issues left-handed people face in day-to-day life, especially in the context of dental products and so forth. But yeah, I found that funny. Anyway, Lori, can you go to the next slide? Right. And then, for example, another interesting area that is close to my heart, of course, we are always on the lookout for gaps and underutilized areas of use for HDF5. And I just created a list here. And how true or how much I can substantiate that list is another question. But I wish we can find some time at HUG25 to talk about that, because yeah, we will have a lot of great minds in the room, and I think it's very important for us in this day and age to yeah, have some good input, some good insights into where we want to go next. And I believe that's the last slide, and time is also up, but I'm happy to answer any questions or comments you guys might have. No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming, and enjoy the rest of your week, and come back next week. So we are not going to make any sudden changes, but yeah, we'll keep thinking about it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Gerd.